Welcome all, and thank you for attending today's Civil Works FY25 Budget Press Conference. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and all attendee lines are currently muted to reduce background noise. Before we get started, please just make sure if you are on the WebEx to open your WebEx chat panel by clicking the chat bubble icon at the bottom right corner of your screen. If you need any technical assistance, please feel free to send a chat message to the event producer. Finally, there will be time for a Q&A at the end of this call, and we will make sure to provide you all with instructions on how to enter the question queue at that time. With that, I'd like to formally begin today's call and turn it over to Chris Osberger, Director of Public Affairs for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Silas. Good afternoon, and thank you for taking the time to join us today to discuss the details of the President's Fiscal 2025 President's Budget for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Civil Works Program. My name is Chris Osberger, and I'm the Director of Public Affairs for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. It is my distinct honor to join you today to serve as today's moderator. Joining us to provide details about this year's budget are the Honorable Michael Connor, the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Civil Works, Lieutenant General Scott Spellman, the USACE Commanding General and 55th Chief of Engineers, Major General Butch Graham, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Deputy Commanding General, Mr. Jamie Pinkham, the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for the Army for Civil Works, Ms. Stacy Brown, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Army for Management and Budget in the Office of the Assistant Secretary for the Army for Civil Works, and Mr. Tab Brown, Chief of the USACE Programs Integration Division. Before we open the press conference for questions, Mr. Connor and General Spellman will make opening statements. After the remarks are complete, we will begin to take the questions from those joining us online today. At this time, I am pleased to introduce the Assistant Secretary for the Army for Civil Works, the Honorable Michael Connor.
Thanks, Chris. Good afternoon. I'm Mike Connor, Assistant Secretary of the Army for Civil Works. Thank you for taking the time today to learn about the President's fiscal year 2025 budget's transformational investments for the Army Civil Works program. The budget details the President's vision to protect and build on the administration's progress and invest in all of America to make sure the middle class has a fair shot and we leave no one behind. Following the historic progress made under President Biden's leadership, with about 15 million jobs added since the president took office and inflation down 2/3 from its peak, the Biden-Harris administration's 2025 budget protects and builds on this progress to lower costs for the American people, protect and strengthen Social Security and Medicare, secure Americans at home and abroad, and reduce the deficit by ensuring the wealthy and big corporations pay their fair share. As part of that blueprint, the Army Civil Works FY 2025 budget reinforces the administration's ongoing commitment to protect, restore, and improve the nation's water resources that will strengthen our economy, protect people and property, and restore key ecosystems. This budget will also spur innovation by investing in research and development and ensuring we improve our capabilities to assess risk and aggressively confront the nation's water resources challenges in a manner that broadly supports community resilience, tackles climate change, and promotes equity for underserved and overburdened communities and tribal nations. Through this budget, the administration also reaffirms its vision of facilitating safe, reliable, and sustainable commercial navigation to improve the resilience of our nation's manufacturing supply chain. In doing so, the budget will create good-paying jobs that provide the free and fair chance to join a union and collectively bargain. The water resources challenges of today and tomorrow are not like yesterday's. Weather extremes are increasingly the norm, creating risks to communities, the economy, and natural systems. As a result, understanding vulnerabilities and increasing our preparedness is of paramount importance. For that reason, the budget provides $79 million for research and development in addition to constructing and maintaining critical infrastructure. These investments will help to improve capabilities in assessing risk, address emerging water resources challenges, including climate change, and achieve significant cost savings in the Civil Works program. Now for the numbers. In total, the fiscal year 2025 budget includes more than $7.2 billion for the Army Civil Works program, which would facilitate waterborne transportation, reduce coastal and inland flood risks, and restore significant, irreplaceable aquatic ecosystems. In developing the Civil Works budget, we work to advance three key policy objectives. 1, decreasing climate risk for communities and increasing ecosystem resilience to climate change based on the best available science. 2, promoting environmental justice in underserved and overburdened communities and tribal nations in line with the Justice 40 initiative. And 3, strengthening the supply chain. The budget also proposes revisions to the appropriations language for several accounts to enable greater transparency and accountability in how these funds are spent. Overall, the resources and priorities contained within will enable the Army to continue working with partners to develop, manage, restore, and protect our nation's precious water resources. We will also work with others to help communities respond to and recover from floods and other natural disasters. And with a focus on modernization and innovation, the budget continues to prioritize the highest performing work within the 3 main missions of the Army Civil Works program: commercial navigation, flood and storm damage reduction, and aquatic ecosystem restoration. With respect to navigation and in support of this administration's commitment to our nation's coastal ports and inland waterways, the FY 2025 budget includes over $3 billion for the study, design, construction, and operation and maintenance of inland and coastal navigation projects to support commerce throughout the United States. Of this amount, over $1.7 billion is derived from the Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund. This total includes over $985 million to operate and maintain the top 50 U.S. coastal ports, which handle around 90% of the nation's waterborne cargo. The FY 2025 budget includes, for the first time, funding for donor and energy transfer ports, as $60 million from the HMTF will be used for maintenance activities to support commercial navigation at these ports. Also, a significant note, the budget includes $264 million to continue construction of the Sault Ste. Marie replacement lock to provide efficiency and protection for a critical trade route for iron ore in the Great Lakes region. Flood and storm damage reduction is at the center of the Civil Works program's actions to support the administration's goal of tackling the climate crisis and building community resilience. Accordingly, the budget contains over $1.5 billion for flood and storm damage reduction, including funding to provide technical and planning assistance to local communities to enable them to understand and better manage their flood risks. The budget proposes to assist these local efforts with an emphasis on non-structural approaches. Equally important to building resilience and protecting the environment is the aquatic ecosystem restoration mission. The budget includes over $1 billion for aquatic ecosystem restoration, including $444 million for the South Florida Ecosystem Restoration Program, enabling continued and significant progress in restoring America's Everglades and building climate resilience in South Florida. The budget also includes $500 million for fish passage at the Howard Hansen Dam, over $75 million for the Columbia River Fish Mitigation Program, and $33 million for construction of a fish passage at Albany Falls Dam, all to support restoration of salmon and other native fish species in the Pacific Northwest. The budget also includes $14 million in the Continuing Authorities Program Aquatic Ecosystem Restoration CAP 206 program for small aquatic ecosystem restoration projects. The majority of that amount, $13 million, is to help protect, restore, and enhance wetlands that may be negatively impacted by the Supreme Court's Sackett versus EPA decision. Other significant initiatives include continuing the investment in the phased replacement of the Cape Cod Canal bridges in Massachusetts. The FY 2024 budget included $350 million for the phased replacement of the Cape Cod Canal bridges towards a commitment of $600 million overall. The FY 2025 budget continues this commitment of the phased replacement of the Sagamore and Bourne bridges by including $5 million for design work associated with the rehabilitation of the Bourne Bridge. In total, the FY 2025 construction program is funded at more than $2 billion, continuing the President's focus on enhancing the country's infrastructure. The majority of that amount is provided in the construction account, but also $29 million from the Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund and more than $49 million from the Mississippi Rivers and Tributaries account. The construction program uses objective, performance-based criteria to give priority to the projects with the highest economic, environmental, and safety return. Of course, in addition to new projects, the budget also focuses on maintaining the key features of the vast water resources infrastructure that the Corps owns and manages, and on finding innovative ways to rehabilitate or divest these projects to others. Specifically, the FY 2025 budget funds the O&M program operation and maintenance at over $4.3 billion, consisting of nearly $2.5 billion from the operations and maintenance account, nearly $1.7 billion from the Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund, and nearly $183 million from the Mississippi River and tributaries account. For operation and maintenance, the budget emphasizes maintaining and improving the performance of existing projects. The allocation of funding among projects for maintenance reflects a risk-informed approach that considers both project and project component conditions and the potential consequences of a failure. The budget also gives priority to the maintenance of coastal ports and inland waterways with the highest commercial traffic. As I wrap up, I'll note the FY 2025 budget provides $124 million for the investigations program, consisting of nearly $111 million from the investigations account and over $13 million from the Mississippi Rivers and tributaries account. This level of sustained investment is critical given the increasing demand by communities across the nations for resilience building. Within this $124 million total, the budget includes $35.5 million for technical and planning assistance programs. These programs help local communities, including underserved and overburdened communities, identify and address their flood risks, including risks associated with climate change. The budget also includes funding to continue studies intended to investigate climate resilience along the Great Lakes coast, as well as in central and southern Florida. Additionally, and extremely important, the FY 2025 regulatory program is funded at $221 million to protect the nation's waters and wetlands and provide efficiency in permit processing. The recreation program is funded at $282 million to ensure the Corps, which operates and maintains a large percentage of federal recreation areas, can continue to effectively serve the public's desire to experience the great outdoors. Thank you all for participating today. I'm excited with the initiatives and the resources provided in this budget. Let me now turn to Lieutenant General Scott Spellman, Chief of Engineers and Commanding General of the United States Army Corps of Engineers, who will provide further remarks and insights on the 2025 Army Civil Works budget. General.
Thanks, Mr. Connor, and really appreciate the opportunity to join you today. We truly appreciate Mr. Connor's leadership and look forward to continuing to work with his team to address the broad range of water resource challenges across our great nation. Through the Civil Works program, USACE works with many others to develop, manage, restore, and protect the nation's critical water resources. We do this primarily through the study, construction, and operation and maintenance of our infrastructure projects. Delivering successful civil works projects is a team sport. We recognize that our credibility is measured by the ability to safely deliver quality projects on time and within budget, and that continues to be among my highest priorities. The studies and projects recommended in the fiscal year 2025 budget enable the Army Corps of Engineers to evaluate the benefits and costs to strengthen the supply chain, address the climate crisis, advance environmental justice, invest in tribal nations, and assist underserved and overburdened communities. Before I talk about the budget, let me just open with a few comments on one of our most important mission areas, and that is disaster response. As you know, the nation continues to face extreme weather events, including hurricanes, fires, drought, and flooding. Some of these have significantly impacted communities and the economy. Over the past year, as part of the federal response team working for FEMA, USACE provided disaster assistance to Guam in the aftermath of Typhoon Mawar. Our support included the provision of temporary power, temporary roofing, and debris removal. We continue to provide debris removal support and development of sites for temporary housing in Hawaii following the devastating fires on the island of Maui last August. I'm especially pleased to note that after working with the state of Hawaii under FEMA mission assignment, we completed the temporary King Kamehameha Elementary School in Lahaina and turned it over to the Hawaii State Department of Education on February 27th. The school will enable community children to continue their education and achieve some sense of normalcy. Another major effort was the recently completed work done by our Mississippi Valley Division to maintain navigation on the Mississippi River during a second year of record-setting low water levels. River stages at Cairo, Illinois were below average for 308 days in the year 2023. The Mississippi Valley Division had a total of 9 dredges working to keep the river open for navigation, removing nearly 26 million tons of dredge material in that process. As we all know, the Mississippi River is critical to the nation's economy, and there were no prolonged closures on the river during this event. During the same time frame, the New Orleans district constructed a saltwater sill in the lower river to prevent saltwater intrusion from the Gulf of Mexico from reaching 7 water intakes that provide fresh water to the city of New Orleans and its surrounding areas. 3 water intakes in the lower parishes were inundated by salt water, and the New Orleans district responded by delivering 153 million gallons of barged fresh water for over 100 days, as well as the installation and operation of multiple water purification units. Throughout these and other disasters, the outstanding men and women of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers stepped up from across the nation to work with FEMA and other federal partners to help these communities return to normalcy. Now, regarding the fiscal year 2025 budget, while much has been done, there is much yet to do. Mr. Connor provided an overview of the 25 budget, and I would like to provide some additional details. In short, investments in the Civil Works program does a number of things. Those investments reduce the risk of flooding, improve waterborne transportation, restore and protect aquatic ecosystems, generate low-cost renewable hydropower, promote environmental justice in underserved and overburdened communities, including tribal nations, and of course, supports American jobs and our economy. The fiscal year 2025 budget includes over $2 billion for our construction program. This funding will ensure continued momentum on important infrastructure improvements across our nation. The budget proposes funding to construct 20 projects comprising of 3 commercial navigation projects, 8 flood and storm damage reduction projects, and 8 aquatic ecosystem restoration projects. The 3 commercial navigation projects are $264 million for the Sioux Lock replacement project in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, $25 million for the Port of Nome modification project in Alaska, and $18 million for the dredge material disposal facility for the Calcasieu River and Pass project in Louisiana. For flood and storm damage reduction, the top 4 funded construction projects are $280 million for Rough River Lake Dam Safety Project in Kentucky, $49 million for the Lower Mississippi River Main Stem Project funded from the Mississippi River and Tributaries account, and $43.5 million for the West Sacramento Project in California, and $38.5 million for the Pajaro Project in Watsonville, California. For aquatic ecosystem restoration, the top 3 funded construction projects are $500 million for the construction of a fish passage facility at Howard A. Hansen Dam in Washington State, $444 million for the South Florida Ecosystem Restoration Program, including the Everglades. This is the highest amount ever proposed in a president's budget and more than a $28 million increase from our fiscal year 2024 budget. Also, over $75 million for the Columbia River Fish Mitigation Program. The 2 construction projects budgeted for completion in fiscal year 2025 are both flood risk management projects, the Eau Stream Flood Control Project in Maui, Hawaii, and the Pipestem Lake Project in North Dakota. The budget includes $124 million for the Corps Investigations Program and funds 63 individual efforts such as feasibility studies, pre-construction engineering and designs, or PEDs, and dredge material management plans. The budget funds 22 studies and designs to completion in 17 states. The completions include 4 PEDs. Those are the Valley Creek Flood Risk Management Study in Alabama, the Kinswa Dam and Allegheny Reservoir Flood Risk Management Project in Pennsylvania, the Arkansas River Corridor Aquatic Ecosystem Restoration Study in Oklahoma, and the Lake Pontchartrain and Vicinity Hurricane Protection Study in Louisiana. The budget provides $4.34 billion for the operation and maintenance of USACE owned and operated infrastructure. $930 million of that amount is provided for specific projects to maintain and improve navigation on our inland waterways and gives priority to those waterways with the most commercial traffic. The funding also includes the completion of 11 project master plans and 12 water control manuals in fiscal year 2025. The budget also proposes $200 million for the formerly utilized sites remedial action program, or FUSRAP, to continue ongoing cleanup at 20 sites across 8 states contaminated as a result of the nation's early atomic weapons development program. The budget provides $79 million for research and development and demonstrates this administration's commitment to invest in science and innovation that will deliver enduring water resource solutions. In closing, the proposed investments in the Civil Works program are positive investments for our nation's well-being. For more than 248 years, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has continuously endeavored to engineer solutions for our nation's toughest challenges. We are committed to working with our many partners across the country to find and deliver sustainable and long-term solutions for these challenges. I could not be prouder of the 38,000 plus military and civilian men and women who serve in USACE today. During my travels to our districts, divisions, labs, and centers, I have seen firsthand the vital work these outstanding professionals are doing each and every day to truly make a difference. Now we'll turn the press conference to Mr. Chris Augsburger for the question and answer period, during which Mr. Connor and I are happy to take any questions you may have. Thank you.
Honorable Connor and General Spellman, thank you for your remarks. Now we'll open the press conference for questions. Operator, please provide instructions on how to enter the queue to ask a question.
If you are logged on through the WebEx, please press the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen to enter the verbal question queue. You may also send written questions through your WebEx chat panel by clicking the chat bubble icon at the bottom right corner of your screen. Finally, if you are dialed in through the phone-only line, please press #2 on your telephone keypad to enter the question queue.
Thank you, Silas. And please remember to provide your name and your organization when the operator calls on you to ask your question. You will be permitted for one question and one follow-up. For those attending via the online conference platform, you may also ask your question via the chat, as was mentioned before. Operator, do we have any questions today?
We have one caller in the queue. Melissa Burke, your line is unmuted. Please go ahead.
Hopefully you can hear me. Melissa Burke with the Detroit News. I heard what you said about the 264 million for the SULAX project. I wondered if I understand the project has had the capacity to spend more than that in the last fiscal year or two, and I wondered if you could just give us an update on kind of what impact that amount could have on the overall construction schedule or costs, given that some of I understand there's some pricing options that expire at certain points. Thanks.
Do you want to take that?
Sir, I'll start. No, thanks, Melissa, for that question. In short, we are where we need to be with respect to the SULAX. You are correct. We do have some pricing options that will expire at the end of 2024. But I want to say I appreciate Mr. Connor and the administration's support in getting us the dollars that we need today to continue the momentum, the great momentum that we have up there at the SU. I know Mr. Connor's been up there. I've been up there a number of times, and we are just getting great support, not only from our local offices, but from the trades men and women who are working on that project in some pretty extreme conditions each and every day, and very, very proud of the work that they're doing.
Yeah, Melissa, this is Mike Connor. I would just add that very fortunately, between the very significant funding we've had from the bipartisan infrastructure law, almost $700 million, plus significant congressional appropriations before that, as well as in the last 2 fiscal years, and now including this budget, we've been able to keep up with the construction options that have been developed to date. So this is something that we're constantly monitoring and trying to provide the resources we have to make sure we're keeping up with the options. So far, so good. This is a very high priority project for the administration, as well as I know the navigation industry as a whole.
Thanks. And do you maybe have an update on what's been allocated to date?
Melissa, we can certainly get the total allegations as of today to you after this call. I just don't have that information here in front of me.
Yeah, it's close to $1.2 billion, but that's not the exact figure. So we can get you that specific number.
Moving to the next caller in our queue. Jim Hausener, your line is unmuted. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. It appears that the President's budget request provided funding for Section 2106 of WRDA, the 2R word of 2014 for donor and energy ports. I was not able to see the permissive language that was provided in Section 102 of WRDA 2020 for emerging harbors, the Great Lakes system, or donor and energy ports. Am I missing that, or would you explain how much the President provided under Section 102? Thank you.
I'm not sure I have the specific numbers. I know that with WRDA 2020 and the provisions that it had for small emerging harbors, Great Lakes harbors, as well as now with respect to the donor and energy ports, we are now consistent with that particular provision. I don't know if we've got specific numbers for everybody. This year, we added the $60 million for the expanded uses at donor and energy ports. But previous to that, in our prior budgets, we have been keeping up consistently with those categories that were identified in WRDA 2020. And once again, we can come up with those numbers, but in general, we have been on track.
If I could, just to point out, I'm not sure we're talking the same. Originally was section 2106 that provides originally 50 million, then 58, possibly 60 million now. Section 102 is providing a percentage. And in California, we're expecting out of that section, based on the latest numbers, about $100 million just to go to the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach. And I could not find that in there. So that's why I was raising the question specifically about that piece of it, because WRDA section 102 provides a percentage of the HMT for those things. And it's a substantial dollar amount that's now being, that you permissively, you have the ability to do. So that was the reason for my question, and maybe we can talk further offline down the road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving to the next caller in our queue, Anna Normand, your line is unmuted. Please go ahead.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Looking at the crosscut, I'm seeing in the past, like say FY 2023, 2024, coastal construction for flood risk reduction was 0 to say less than 10 million. And in this request, coastal is at 488 million, whereas inland construction is less. Can y'all expound upon those numbers? What is that funding and decision to provide more to coastal in the request this year?
I would just say overall, with respect to coastal storm damage reduction projects versus inland, we have been on a trajectory as we've gotten more coastal projects authorized and in the queue. We have been significantly increasing the amount in the budget for the construction activity related to the SRM projects, the coastal projects. I would also note that, the coastal projects get a very significant funding boost from the disaster supplementals. Obviously, given the situation that we're trying to not only respond to disasters, we're trying to get in front, and Congress has been very generous in providing funding so that we can, move forward with the construction activity for CSRM projects. So overall, the trajectory has been increasing, new authorizations that exist, and I think that's for that reason, that's why you're seeing much higher levels.
No, sir, I think, and I would just add to that, I think over the last several supplementals, our coastal projects have seen investment upwards of $7 billion that are funding about 60 coastal projects across the nation. And as Secretary Connor just said, I just think this is the natural trajectory that follows in our the president's budget.
Moving to the next caller in our queue, Jen Armstrong, your line is unmuted. Please go ahead.
Morning, or afternoon, excuse me. How are you all? I appreciate the press release. You had mentioned that the inland O&M dollar amount was 935. Is that what I heard?
Yes.
All right, the crosswalk has 47, so I was a little thrown off by that. And similar to the last question that we received with respect to coastal versus inland, inland navigation has some capabilities in FY25, and I was just wondering what was the reason for not including any inland navigation for modernizing our system.
So this is Mike Connor. The inland waterway system has been the very significant beneficiary of the bipartisan infrastructure law funds to the tune of about $2.5 billion. And we, made strategic investments back in 2022, follow up in 2023, and we had anticipated making some additional investments to deal with 2025 capability that exists. with remaining IIJA resources. We had about $113 million that was unallocated from the bipartisan infrastructure law, to which we were looking at FY 2025 needs. Congress, in this most recent appropriations bill, of course, which we just got enacted into law this past weekend, they used all the unallocated IIJA funding, which included $113 million of the inland waterways funding, as well as well over $1.2 billion of coastal money that we had left. They made some very good investments. Believe me, we don't. We feel very well supported by Congress, but it has changed our available resources by which we could make investments into FY 2025. So now we've got very significant funding in FY 2024 for inland waterways projects to the tune of about $501 million. That was in the appropriations bill that just got enacted this past weekend, and there's 4 different projects that are the beneficiaries of that. So looking forward, that created an issue about what we could look at for FY 2025, since we no longer had those resources available to allocate as part of this budget release. And so we're going to have to look at some of the needs. One specific need that I know that we have in FY 2025 is Kentucky Locks and Dam. And certainly in all projects, we're looking to complete our construction activity. Fortunately, in the FY 2024 appropriations bill, we'll be able to fully complete 2 projects, at least that I know of, maybe an additional one. And now we've got to work with Congress on the FY 2025 need for inland waterways.
Now moving to the couple questions we have in the WebEx chat. Tom Ichniowski of the Engineering News Record asks, for General Spellman, are the 20 construction projects you just listed new starts or follow-on funding installments for projects underway?
Tom, these are not new starts. These are follow-on investments from construction that we've already initiated.
Our next question comes from Tom Ewing, freelance writer. Thanks for the press conference today. On page 3, there is reference to changing appropriations language to enable greater transparency and accountability regarding spending. Is that language available? And what's an example of a recent confusing or misleading reference and funded project?
Hi, Tom. This is Mike Connor. I appreciate the question, because I had that same question at the end of last week as we were putting together the budget language. So I think it's pretty simple with respect to the appropriations language. We would like to budget specifically identifying the Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund, as well as any inland waterway trust fund, separately highlighting those trust funds account rather than putting that money in the construction budget. So I think that's pretty much what we're referring to with respect to that specific language. Those proposals have been in our prior budgets, I think in the last 2 budgets, 2023 and 2024, if I'm not mistaken. So that language is out there and available.
That concludes all the questions we have in the queue currently, but as a reminder for attendees, if you have any further questions, you can please press the raise hand icon on WebEx for the verbal queue, enter your question in the WebEx chat, or if you are dialed into the phone line, you may press #2 on your telephone keypad, all to enter the verbal question queue. We have had one more question come in through chat. David Conrad with the Association of State Floodplain Managers asks, we are pleased to see 2 of the investigations programs, floodplain management services and planning assistance to states' FY 2025 budgets set at $25 million and $9 million respectively. We were very surprised to see the numbers in the FY 2024 final appropriations bills at significantly lower levels. We've heard that maybe the reason was carryovers from 2023/4. We are hoping that the administration will really hold strongly and keep these flood-related programs strongly funded going forward because they are so important to underserved communities. Comment?
David, thanks for the question. My comment is absolutely agree with your perspective that these are incredibly important programs. And I think increasingly important with respect to our ability to do both outreach and to engage with communities that we haven't historically served very well. And that's our goal. There has been carryover, certainly with respect to planning assistance to states. We got a significant influx of money from the bipartisan infrastructure law, which was great. And I would just remind you that Congress has recently given us new tools to use those programs by giving us flexibility with respect to cost share. So I think between the funding that we have, the outreach we're doing now, and the fact that we can demonstrate flexibility in working with economically disadvantaged, overburdened communities, I think you're going to see us more and more using those resources up. That's why we're going to continue to look at them and fund them strongly in our budgets.
There are no further questions at this point, but just as one final reminder for attendees, you can press the raise hand on WebEx or the verbal queue, WebEx chat for written questions, and if you are on the phone line, press #2 to enter the question queue.
If there are no more questions, I thank everybody for joining us today. I'll now turn back to Mr. Connor and General Spellman for any closing remarks.
Just again, I want to thank everyone for attending. Mr. Connors heard me say this a few times, so I'll apologize, sir. You got to hear it again. These really have been historic times for the Army Corps of Engineers, and I've said that a lot over the past few years. It just seems that every month and year that goes by, it seems to get more historic. So we greatly appreciate the investment that the nation, certainly the administration, is making in all of our programs, and you have our commitment to continue to safely deliver quality projects on time and within budget as we continue to work with our great partners across the nation. Thank you, everyone.
I would just echo General Spellman's comments, particularly with respect to that influx of resources and the fact that the Corps is continuing to modernize and evolve and how it uses those resources, this incredible increase of workload that it has with almost the same level of employees it's had over the past decade. I think that's quite remarkable, but it's indicative of the need that's out there for the services and the resources and the expertise that the Army Corps of Engineers provides our many communities. So it's a great influx. We feel strongly supported with the budget from the administration. We feel strongly supported by Congress with the most recent appropriations bill. But quite frankly, there's more work and demand out there. And I think that's just telling of the times that we live in. So I would just say we appreciate the support. We know there's more out there, and we're going to continue to do our best to keep up with that workload and continue to modernize our practices so that we can serve the communities that are in demand of our services.
All right, this concludes today's press conference. If you need further assistance for information about the budget, please reach out to my public affairs staff. Thank you and have a great afternoon.